Welcome to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is Pritam Atma, speaking on Mystical Motherhood. Pritam Atma is a nurse practitioner, healer, mother, and author. She wrote her second book, Fertile, as part of a series and follow-up to her first book, Mystical Motherhood, Create a Happy and Conscious Family, a guidebook for conception, pregnancy, birth, and beyond. She is deeply connected to bringing conscious children into this world. She currently works as a nurse practitioner in a fertility center within the New York area, practicing reproductive medicine. Pritam Atma also works with women privately and in groups, helping them to apply the concepts of mystical motherhood and fertile to increase their fertility and consciously prepare for motherhood. You can learn more about this at mysticalmotherhood.com or find her on Facebook and Instagram at Mystical Motherhood. Hi, Pritam. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to talk with you, and I think we have a lot in common.
I definitely think we have a lot in common. You're like a soul sister, and it's always fun for me to connect with other like-minded women healers that are out there that are really passionate about the perinatal journey that women are on and how we can do it the most holistically and consciously. And so this is going to be a great interview.
Yeah, wonderful.
So I'd love for you to start off with just sharing the audience, a little bit about who you are and kind of what your story is.
Yeah, so I was a labor and delivery nurse, and I began to open spiritually. And then I was set on a path, which I didn't actually even expect. And I went and studied with Ina May Gaskin. And I recognized in that moment that it was all done wrong. And I knew I was sitting next to her and she's holding my hand. Ina May Gaskin is the most famous midwife in the world. And she really held a frequency on the planet that helped women to know that you didn't have to have a C-section. You didn't have to necessarily get an epidural, that there was a different way to do things. And I sat in this room with her and she held my hand and she said, she was watching a movie about her life. And I just felt like I was getting some sort of a transmission or something. And then from that moment forward, I began to meet teachers over and over again that really set me on my path. And so I left I was a labor and delivery nurse at UCSF, a really amazing hospital, number one. And nobody would have left, and I did. And I went back to become a nurse practitioner. And Spirit kind of led me to open up and understand birthing and fertility in different ways. And I mean, this is all in my third book, but I recognized from all of my background in psychology and as a nurse practitioner and in Western medicine and Eastern medicine that there's no theories that show that development begins at conception. And so I spent years traveling around the world to sacred sites to understand how the ancient women would bring down babies. So not only did I study with Western practitioners in really amazing centers, but then I began to study the ancient ways in these power centers around the world. And I found that it was really centered around consciousness. And so I began to study behavioral epigenetics and DNA and apply that to the time in the womb and also the yogic philosophies around bringing these ancient children down. And I put these in my two books, Mystical Motherhood and Fertile. And I'm writing a third book now, it's almost done, called Alchemy of Becoming. And I did this all very quickly. And so it's so much more. And now I work as a reproductive nurse practitioner in an IVF center in Brooklyn and New York. And I take women privately to help them consciously conceive. So to help them clear out patterns before they have a baby.
I love that. I think that's such fascinating work. I think, a lot of women are familiar with doing a physical cleanse prior to getting pregnant, but there's so much more cleansing that can be done. There's so many different layers. So I think it's powerful.
Yeah. At my clinic, for example, I do a lot of prenatals. So I love Western medicine because I think it's important. However you get pregnant, right? A lot of people think they have to get pregnant in a certain way and it has to be done naturally. And there's a lot of control around that. And I understand all those things. And as a labor and delivery nurse, I know that, people have a certain way they want to have things happen. And I don't think that this work is necessarily about how you become pregnant. It's really how you are a better woman and a better mother and create a better family to create a higher consciousness within the child. And so, for even example, at the clinic, when I'm working with my prenatal patients, the first thing I teach them is that it's not just the food they're eating, which is what, if a practitioner even gets to food, they're lucky. And I mean, and most doctors don't even speak about it. Now, if you get to food, then that's a bonus. But then if you even think about the thoughts, the emotions, the environment, the consciousness of the woman while she's pregnant, that's what programs the DNA. And that's what I, teach women, that they're the genetic engineers of humanity. And so changing it around to make not diet just important, but also, what are they thinking? What are their emotions? What is on their mind? What is their generational patterns? What is their basic neurotic and phobic tendencies? And how can we heal them so that they can bring a high caliber soul down? And that's what fertility really is that high frequency that makes you super magnetic.
Wow, it's so powerful. And, as I'm thinking about that, if you're resonating at a level that high where you're just so magnetic, you're not just magnetizing high caliber souls, you're magnetizing your dream career, and life's purpose and partner, and, your entire life is going to look magical.
It absolutely does. And everyone who does the work, that's exactly what happens. And so I work, my first book, Mystical Motherhood, was basically looking at Western medicine combined with Kundalini yoga and meditative practices. Because for me, I have found from my personal growth that Kundalini yoga and meditation is the most powerful, potent, and fast thing we have on the planet to change consciousness. And so I used a lot of meditations to apply that to pregnancy because they work quickly to change women and to change patterns. And then in my second book, Fertile, I really focused on the ancient ways of birthing combined with science and spirit. So I looked at what epigenetics is. And epigenetics says that your thoughts, your emotions, your behavior, and your environment program DNA. And I said, oh my gosh, no one's really applied this to pregnancy. Let me get a hold of Bruce Lipton, who gave me an interview.
I love Bruce Lipton. He's so amazing.
I didn't even know who he was. And I was just, I heard them whispering, because when I write my books, it's all channeled. I don't even know what I'm writing at all, actually. And the story of how I even wrote the books was a part of my third book. But what I teach is that this level of magnetism we're talking about, back to what we started with, is it's either women can be creative or they can be destructive. Yogi Bhajan from this lineage teaches that women can be 16 times more intuitive or 16 times more neurotic than the male.
Oh, interesting.
And so what I teach is these meditations combined with enhancing your environment, enhancing your touch, your sounds around you through mantras, enhancing the colors, the flavors, the everything. That's what is creating the consciousness of the next generation. And if a woman's not creating a baby, she should be creating something different, or she'll be destructive in her patterns. And that, because we're so amazing that way.
We're wired for creation, is what you're saying.
For creation, whether creative or destructive. And so Mystical Motherhood teaches women how to really let go of those generational patterns that are destructive.
Wow. And that is amazing. And it's something that actually, I do see, I've seen it with myself, with past generational stuff within the women of my family and healing those wounds, right? And it's really powerful when you think about how much we can do now to create a shift. It doesn't, our children don't have to just continue these stories.
Right. And actually, my third book, Alchemy of Becoming, it really looks at alchemy and how that's, because I like to study different spiritual technologies and apply them to life, because I feel like a lot of people need that right now. And in this third one, I really looked at all the things the wounds that hold us back. And what I called it is what you were just mentioning is I named it the original wound. So we all have a pattern that really holds our heart from fully opening, and it folds itself within our life. And then we can't consciously see it until we're really ready to awaken. And then we have to be, we can't be ignorant anymore. We can't ignore that it's there. And it usually has to do with our mother or our father wound. And you call this like a phobia. So within the partnership or the relationship, which is creating the family, you recreate the mother or father wound, whether or not you know it or not. And so part of the work of mystical motherhood on a larger scale is also to help women grow up within themselves. So the little girls within them that are left unhealed at these different ages, whether, they had trauma at 3, trauma at 7, trauma at 9, or a memory that shook them, they will energetically be stuck at that level. And then and as a result of that, maybe fight with their partner at that level, fight with their mother at that level, always, not be able to move on from that destructive part of them, or they'll self-sabotage, from that level of that wound. And so what I love about Kundalini Yoga, which is why I'm always teaching it, is it just gets to the wound so quickly. And so does the alchemical process, which I speak about in this book. But if we heal those little girls within, and we heal, these different parts of ourselves, we'll not only heal our family as women and as mothers, and then we will then heal the next generation as we mother. So this book is really about the motherhood part of healing the woman and partnering correctly, where the previous ones were, really about the womb and looking at the patterning you're giving to the child in the womb.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So what about, so it's obviously the offspring they're boys and girls. So I can really see how girls being mothered by a mom who's shifted that is huge. But, what about the boys? How is this impacting their consciousness?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, there's a meditation I always give. I think it's the best one for pregnancy. It's called the Adi Shakti. And in this meditation, it's in my book, it's in the book, Mystical Motherhood. But for this one, it specifically connects the 2 hemispheres of the brain. And so the male will it won't have that warrior aspect necessarily. The male will have a compassionate, empathetic, demeanor, but be very bold in his male. It doesn't stop him from becoming a male. And for a female, it puts the female on the destiny. Now, let me just give you an example of how powerful these mantras and meditations are. Today, I could not find my passport. I couldn't find it. And I was looking and looking and looking, and I looked for 2 hours. And then I kept hearing, I was about to, get online to get a new passport, doing the whole thing. And I kept hearing, pray, just start to do this prayer that I was taught. It's a prayer to find lost things. I said, oh, that won't work. Come on. And then my daughter, who's very intuitive because I meditated with her and I still meditate in front of her. And she said, pray, Mom. And I said, okay, fine. So I went and got the prayer, opened up my computer. I was praying it. I walked over as I'm praying it to the middle of 2 books, and it was stuck in the middle of 2 books. And I picked it up that quick. It took me 2 minutes.
Wow.
So that's how fast these things work to change. And that's why I teach them as a part of this program. So they're very good for the males, back to what you were saying, but the male in the womb, but they're also good for the mother or the father to change. So once you change the pattern within you, you can't pass it on, because it's an energetic timeline that necessarily can't be passed on unless it's, energetically given, or it's, in the DNA of the mother in the womb. Does that make sense? So for males, it's the same thing. They just become more compassionate, more loving, and there's no difference.
Oh, wow. And that also goes back to just, more peaceful, communities, right? Less aggressive, less anger, less,
Right. Exactly.
The compassion, the empathy is there.
Right. And I find that the women who do this work to change their consciousness, they find the work because they are hitting mystical motherhood is motherhood is an awakening process. And in my own journey and in most of the women I meet, they have either a collapse before they get pregnant, they can't get pregnant. So infertility often brings a lot of, opportunity for awakening, because you need chaos in order to create peace. Sadly, on this planet, you need the opposite, the polar. We're seeing that right now.
Right.
And then I find that the mother wound comes up a lot with the first baby. If the woman had any mother issues, which almost all of us do, have mother issues, we were not loved, right? And then we begin to mother the child. And if we're trying, as the planet's consciousness is increasing, which it is, and it will be over the next 7 years significantly, the pressure will become higher. Then the woman doesn't feel the love and doesn't know how to mother the child, and then begins to mother like her mother mothered her, and has the same reactions unconsciously, yells or unconsciously gets angry. So not only are we programming in the womb, but then we're programming it at, all these different stages where we could completely have the opportunity to change. But people don't know how. Like, how do you change a pattern where you were yelled at your whole life? And then how can you not yell at your child? So you need to go back into the timeline where the wound hurt, where you hurt the most, where your mother yelled at you, and mother yourself, so that you can really love all the parts of yourself that were never shown that kind of love, so that you can be able to really love your children.
Yeah. I mean, that's what has to happen. We have to mother ourselves first, right? That's a version of self-care. So how do you, I'm assuming in your program, you walk women through of how to access and even really become conscious of this.
Yeah. And it usually, for these kind of things, they have to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have, it usually is a crisis. It's a relationship crisis. It's a problem with not becoming pregnant. It's a problem with losing a child. Often they find me. Sometimes a book will fall off a shelf and hit them in the face. Like, I've heard crazy stories of how women have found this work. Unbelievable. And then it changes their life, because they begin to look at the things they can do. And I'm finding more and more, and I know it'll happen more and more, is if we can catch the women before conception.
Yeah.
Then they can move into it consciously and really look at the patterns within them. And they don't have to necessarily worry about their partner. I think a lot of women are like, well, my partner is not spiritual, or my partner is not doing the work. It's only you have to do the work. You're holding the baby. You're holding the whole relationship. You're holding the whole thing is held within the woman's aura.
Wow.
And so the more a woman can, and we don't really know what a powerful woman is in this time or day. We don't know what sovereignty is. We don't understand, the women of ancient times, they could see, they could hear, they could feel, they could travel. They would bring down the children through light. They would bring down the children through astrology. I understand all this from all the traveling I did. The Hathors in Egypt would use sound, and they would use sacred geometry, and they would use the timing of the stars, and they would build their temples, their birthing temples, connected to the planetary alignment of the type of soul they want to bring down. So if we're really looking at what conscious conception is, it is bringing these ancient methods in with these. I mean, as much as I love IVF, as much as I love these ancient methods, I think it's all genetic engineering to really help a woman become a better human, or become a mother, right? And she knows how to utilize all these different technologies, which they are. What I talk about in my book, and even, IVF in the future is going to become much bigger than we know. But if I could teach women what to take from this, if they're in the process of beginning to think about having a family, it's not just the food. It's, are you meditating? Are you listening to mantras all the time? What are you looking at all day? How can you enhance your environment? What's the sound around you? What's your taste? What's your vibrational frequency? And the more you raise your vibrational frequency, the more fertile you become.
Right. That's right. Because that's that magnetism you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
In Mystical Motherhood, you mentioned, do you have more than one child?
I have two.
Two. I think you mentioned with the first pregnancy, maybe, or both, that you weren't practicing this?
I wasn't, but my second child, I wasn't practicing this, but I am now in front of them, and I see now. It doesn't. I see that it didn't. It didn't. I was awakening at that point, but I didn't understand how high this technology is to change these children. And so I do it now. So like even in Mystical Motherhood, it goes into what you can do if you already have children. There's no regret. I did the best I could do. We're always doing the best we can do, right? If we didn't know any better, I mean, you could start, being consciously mother at 50 and change your whole life. It doesn't really matter. But what I do now, as I begin to realize, like if there's a mess up happening or something happening, I have mantras going in my house almost all the time. I make sure the kids are always sleeping to mantras. I choose white sun mantras because I know that they have a really high frequency. They're always going. I meditate around my children, and I have friends that come over and meditate around my children. I never make them meditate. I never make them do anything they don't want to do. I always ask a lot of questions. I invite them to come in. I encourage them, but I don't make them do anything. But I find that the more they see me do it, my one daughter can sit for an hour and a half now.
Wow.
Now, she was the daughter that wasn't in the womb that I was meditating. My second daughter, I know, comes from this lineage, which is why I found the Kundalini lineage. And she, after my 120th day, I started meditating. I started chanting. I didn't know why, but it was this child in my body. It was the soul in my body
during the pregnancy with her.
Yeah, some amazing stories, some beautiful stories with her. But she's psychic. The little girl is psychic. Both of them are, but I encourage that. I don't stunt them. I don't make them feel surprised when they know the answers. I don't question their dreams. And so the children these days, they just see how you are. And the less neurotic you are and the more loving you are and the more you're in your heart and you're not connected to the patterns of your past, then the better they'll be. The less you worry about them, the better they are. And they're fine. You're the one who needs to you need more help than they do.
Right. That's so funny.
Every time anyone comes to me, if they have any problem with their child, I always look at the mother. I don't even talk about the child. I said, what's going on with you?
Right.
Are you crying? Are you going through a divorce? Are you supported? If you feel loved and supported and you have your life going and you're focusing on your love that's flowing through you, they will flourish.
Yeah.
It comes from the woman that holds the household. And that's why the work should come through the woman who can change it all.
And I think that's really important for women to hear because, that can be really challenging with relationships where, the woman's doing the research. She's like committed to creating this healthy pregnancy and her partner's not fully on board. And, and to your point, that's okay. He's a sperm donation and
he's a sperm donation. And
yeah.
in the future of the Aquarian age, which is really going to be hitting just next week, which is great. We're talking right now with this planetary conjunction is you are creating the scene. You're creating your reality. And right now you do the work and you change your frequency. And what you'll find is as your frequency increases and you change the generational patterns and you switch things at and I call an alchemical, level, which, if you're on the spiritual path, you can either be moving, you're typically moving at a 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 rate. Not everybody, but a lot of people will begin to move that quickly. And so that's really what's happening on the planet right now. We're in the chaos phase, which I call the alchemical phase of calcination, which I talk about in my next book, Alchemy of Becoming. But these phases of transformation are going to become really obvious. And in this new age, I believe the matriarchy and the patriarchy will be a bit more balanced. But it's going to take some destruction of everything to get that to come up, especially around the males. And so for every woman who needs a male to be what more you need from them, you need to become that first. And because the more you project of what you hope they'll become, the more you try to heal them, the more you try to change them, the less you change yourself. And the energy, you lose so much time and energy trying to make everybody around you change when it's really you who needs to change.
Right. Well said, and very simple, actually. I think that's just the important thing is that's the only person you can change is yourself. You also can't change your children, right? You can just continue to model.
Right. So typically when I'm working with somebody, they come to me with a problem and I have an ability to say like, well, have you looked at it this way? Or have you looked at it a different way? And a lot of the issues are around, partnering, mothering with a male, which my next book is all about, is having the woman understand that it's only really her that matters in the situation of her own awakening, and that his awakening doesn't really have anything to do with hers. She is she within she. So there's a good quote, like, the Ouroboros snake, it's eating its own tail, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
So there's this meditation I like to teach. It's called a meditation for self-animosity. And it helps women, to gain their self-esteem and to actually, they make a lot of money later because they start to like themselves more. And Yogi Bhajan explained from that meditation, because everyone who works with me, I find a different pattern within them. And there's always a meditation that's going to heal that pattern. And they come back to me and they're like, whoa, it's gone. And that's why I love it. It works so quick. But this meditation, he describes that a woman, she begins to hate herself when she sleeps with the male, when she loses her virginity. Because when she's within herself and she's within that self-love and she has that ability to just be self-generating, right? Because in the ancient times, women could create their own children. I talk about it in my book, Fertile, there's this method called the Hieros Gamos. And the Hieros Gamos is an ancient method done in ancient Greece and Egypt and Mesopotamia, those kind of regions there. And they would connect to the star systems with this light energy and they would make love with the gods, right?
Wow.
Then they began to so they would create themselves within themselves. They were self-generation creatures, she within she. So there was no issues. And supposedly within time and space, they recreated the male as the opposite, right? And they did this and they began to sleep with the male. So not only are we, let's look at it a different way. Not only are we creating the male within us, we're then birthing the male, we're then raising the male, and then we are, marrying the male, and then we're burying the male. And so all of us who are mad at the male, we're really just mad at ourselves because we created it in the first place. And any issue, or you could just be mad at the woman next to you who's like your sister who birthed the guy that you married and she buried. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like we created the whole thing. And if you look at it like that, you have to take back all ownership of whatever males in your life that's maybe not as spiritual as you, because I know that's a big issue for a lot of women that are beginning to awaken is, well, he's not doing it, or how can I do it like this, or he's not a part of it. It doesn't matter because it's all about your self-healing. And he will catch up with you or he will fall behind because your frequency will become so powerful.
Right. I've worked with a few healers over the years where I was working on these like past generational wounds. And what I was told is as I was doing this work, I'm not only helping to heal future, but there was also a healing occurring for my mother, my grandmother, and that lineage as well.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So, that's so powerful.
Yeah. And in the Kundalini heritage, it's 40 generations.
Both directions?
I don't know if it's both directions, but I think it's 20 and 20.
That's a lot.
And I know it and that's why it's so, some of the big ones are so hard to heal. And especially right now, there's like a timeline shift happening. And some of them, it's like we have to choose to let it go. And it's so hard because the pattern's so ingrained, and getting to that subconscious reprogramming of why did I choose that again? And it can be as simple as about male choosing the wrong male. It could be picking up the drink of alcohol again. It could be, right now it's really about everybody re-engaging their trauma. So what this COVID thing is really about, it's an energetics of the crown chakra, corona, being hit by a trauma. Okay. So everyone's unhealed past traumatic wound, which I call the original wound, is really going to be triggered, and the people around them are going to trigger it, which are then going to help to open their hearts. Because the only way that this planet and the children of the future are going to be different is if we enter into the heart chakra. And so last year was the year of the heart. And we'll find over the next 7 or so years that the heart will begin to open for many people. And the pain of the heart is very difficult to open. And so all of the old wounds and traumas have to come up and arise to be healed. Mm-hmm. Often come in the form of a lot of family drama, relationship drama, child drama, or, these patterns that are so ingrained, they take you down and they're exhausting, which you got to normally ignore. And there's phases of this heart opening experience where there's the fire stage, which I talk about in Fertile, the stages of, looking at the elements and how they bring in fertility, which is, I could go into a whole podcast about the elements and the sounds and shapes and sacred geometry. But what we're going to go through now is this heart opening process where first the fire comes up, which is what we're going through of the calcination phase. And then we'll move into this dissolution phase, which is the water phase of the grief of humanity.
Wow.
And this will bring us into a new balance eventually, where everything we're talking about on this podcast right now will be very common in the next 10 years to 14 years. It'll be very normal and people will awaken much quicker. But we're going through a phase where there's a lot of pressure not to have that happen. I hope I didn't get off subject, but...
No. Just like absorbing all this information. So I think... Well, I would definitely say there's been an extreme intensity, right, in this past year, and that's persisting. It sounds like for the next six more years.
6 more years, yeah.
It's like a cleansing. It's a pressure cooker.
I think it's like what Genesis said in the Bible. Like there will be the 7 years of plague, and then there's 7 years of peace. But the yogis all know that about 14 years, the Aquarian age is really going to hit in the next, on December 21st, the planetary alignment comes in. And so there's a lot of pressure to have that really not happen because it's going to open the heart chakra where everything's a little bit more neutral and we're not in these lower 3 areas of, greed or sexuality or fear-based programming, right?
Right.
And so it's important for the mothers to link it back to what we're talking about. I really talked about this in my 3rd book, Alchemy of Becoming, but I linked it to relationships and how our relationships are really mirrors to our wounds. And so if anybody's listening that is a mother or about to conceive or having these kind of issues with family, with your mother, or with your father, you have to see where your original wound came from. And there's a pattern of maybe, and it's always back to lack of love, but there may be a pattern of abuse, or there may be a pattern of unavailability or ancient patterns, of drinking or drug use or swearing, whatever it is, right? Pick your poison. That will come up to be healed. And the power of it is amazing. And at the end of all of this, you will be a new person. But that's kind of what people are going to be seeing. A lot of chaos with that. But with chaos always comes peace.
Right. Yeah. So there's the hope there. And I think at the end of the day, anytime, I find I've gone through, done the work, so to speak, it can be really uncomfortable. It can be there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of discomfort, right? And then that's what's required to get to the other side.
Yeah. And to bring it back to what your work, you're personally doing with women, is there any questions you have about, the conception, preconception, pregnancy, postpartum, early childhood years, or even about with Fertile, which is really looking at how sacred geometry is connected to DNA and is connected to, science and spirit? Is there any questions you have about those sort of things that can help your audience?
Well, yes, let's say we have a woman who's she's preconception, she's looking to consciously conceive a child, and she's following the healthy lifestyle, but she's looking to be more conscious of these wounds and how to kind of discover them, right? Like so you would recommend that she starts a Kundalini practice and meditates. Is there any like support and guidelines around that?
Yeah. So women or people don't usually tend to find their wounds unless there's a controversy or some sort of opposing polarity that allows them to see the wound. So a mirror, I call it a mirror. It may be in a relationship or something. So if there's none of that occurring and they're not looking, I'm not teaching that women should go out and be looking for their wounds, nor should they be talking about their wounds, nor should they be creating their wounds or trying, I believe about kind of forgiving and forgetting your wounds, because that will loop you back into the past. And what we're trying to get you to do is get on a different timeline into the future, right?
Right.
Or more into the present so that you're not future projecting your wounds. So specifically for conception and you're about to have a baby, I mean, I would, Thorologics is a great brand for talking about using prenatal supplements. I love that brand. I give it to my patients. I think that the meditations I love for preconception, if you're even just a beginner and you don't know where to begin, I love this meditation called Sakriya. And it's in my book, Mystical Motherhood. And it really, it puts pressure on the lower chakras and it brings a lot of energy in and it gets you what you need and what you want. And so it's a very hard meditation for beginners, but it's worth it. And there's videos on YouTube and it's in my book and I describe it in detail in there. It's called SAT, new word KRIYA, great meditation to become pregnant. Another one I like to give is Kirtan Kriya. Also in my book, Mystical Motherhood, this helps to balance the menstrual cycle. It helps to link you to your partner. It also subtly heals trauma. Because what I like about Kundalini is you don't have to go into the trauma. You just let the meditation do the thing. You don't have to think about it. It's like a teacher once said, you just do your practice and watch it drop. And I can't tell you how true it is. You just do your practice and watch the things drop. But you will change so significantly that your frequency will change, your partners may change, your friendships may change, your what you're interested in, the food you eat, the clothes you wear. It'll just change because your consciousness changes so quickly. Regarding mantras and creating the subtle environment to increase your consciousness, I highly recommend always having mantras playing even at night. If you can't have words playing, you can pick a gong. I like to give out white sun mantras. They're all free online, white sun. They are awesome. The specific mantras you can listen to are Daspai is a prayer mantra. You can put the prayer into your house. Rogante is a mantra you can play that rewrites what happened in the womb. And also it is great to listen to while you're pregnant because it protects the embryo in the womb. So almost every prenatal that comes to me, every pregnant woman, I give the mantra Rogante, whether or not they want it or not. And they're listening to it and they like it. So those are very simple things you can do.
And you literally are just having this play in your house all the time, even you're sleeping with it.
All the time. And it protects your home. And so whatever's happening. So even in fertile, it's almost like I wrote it before a war zone happened. And I explained it as like, okay, if there's a war happening, how do we program these children to not come out as fighters, fight or flight warriors, right?
Right.
And it's amazing because we're basically in World War III right now. And
right.
So we can take the dynamics or the education of what I put in fertile. I didn't actually write that book. A higher force wrote that book. So not even myself. I can't give myself credit. But if we can really recognize our internal power let's not even think about our wounds. Let's think about the wounds of the community. But the one way to really raise our frequency and not have to do so much work is you can't do this alone. You can't change your consciousness alone. You need a mirror or a reflection or a teacher to help you pull you out of it. And
right.
So the mantras will playing all the time in the car. And then you begin to like a mantra and then you look up the words and you sing the mantra. And that really will get the meditations going. Then you'll start to become interested in it. And then you'll start to become interested in your own healing. And then books will come to you. Then teachers will come to you. Then healers will find you, or you'll find them, or you'll find their work. And then you begin to really awaken. And once you put the prayer out, so what is your biggest prayer really? And then that prayer has to be answered. That prayer has to be filled. And you will get your answers coming through. But the mantras help. The Sakriya, another one is a meditation for addiction. It's in my book. It's super simple. It's on my website at mysticalmotherhood.com. It's on the top. It's free. It's a really good one for mental thoughts that are, constantly plaguing you. Like, for example, I'm not pregnant yet. I'm not pregnant yet. I'm not pregnant yet. It just eliminates them. It's unbelievable. So start with those things. Walking 5 miles a day is a great yogic way to get your body ready. Lots of water, celery juice. I go through all the nutrients within my book.
Right.
And understanding the elements and how the elements affect your fertility, not just in an acupuncture way, but also in a way of the elements are affecting us externally and they're affecting us internally. And so whatever element you're in, so if we know the world's on fire right now, you may not be on fire, but you have to really look at what element you're in and to balance those elements out within you through these meditations, through acupuncture, or through the emotional work needed to balance each of the elements, which is another conversation.
Oh, wow. So I'm just thinking now, if, women that are going through this work, what a different type of pregnancy experience they're going to have. And, the thing I'm super passionate about is the type of birth, whether a woman's having an empowered birth or not. So this is just setting them up for success.
Or when they're pregnant, now that's a whole different thing. Now, it depends on the stage they're in. If they're pregnant, I would say do a lot of yoga. So if you do a lot of the type of yoga, like the Kriya yoga, or you do a lot of, 5 miles of walking every day, lots of water, tons of squats. So the Japanese to have a natural birth, 500 squats a day. I mean, if you want a woman, if you want to have a natural birth, you got to train for it like a marathon.
Right.
If you don't want to have a natural birth, fine. That's fine with me. I don't care. But don't go into it thinking that you're going to just be able to pop a baby out without training for it. It's a marathon. And so when I'm teaching women, I teach them, walking 5 miles a day, squatting all the time. And you're prepping from day one, just like if you're doing a conscious conception, you're prepping beforehand.
Right. So you don't think the birth would impact the type of soul coming through? That's already been determined during the pregnancy.
My lineage, and from my own experience, and from what all the women I have worked with, there is a significant shift that happens around 4 months. It's around 17 weeks, where you suddenly feel connected. Like even with my child, I began to chant then. I didn't know what Kundalini was until I became pregnant with that baby. I didn't even know what it was. I just kept thinking the word, what is this? What is this? What is it? So I started to chant it. I mean, my whole life, which is a whole amazing, actually, story, what happened when I had her. But the child's soul, beginning with this lineage, with this yogic, Sikh lineage, is that it comes in around 120 days. So the woman has a choice to keep the child up until then because she has sovereignty over her body, and then after 120 days is when for conception, if you believe this or not, we don't really care. Let's just say we don't even believe it, but we're just going to pretend it exists. Before 120th days, you're talking to the soul outside of your body. So the first day of conception is actually considered the day the male ejaculates inside of you, or if you're at an IVF clinic, it would be the day the embryo is implanted or the day the IUI had happened. That would be day one. And then from day 1 to 120 is you're talking to the soul outside your body. And even if you're doing really conscious conception, you're talking to a soul for years ahead before it comes down, like, find your father for me, bring me the house I need, give me the money we need to take care of you, show me the teachers I need to heal. Like, you ask the soul to become a part of you and bond with the soul before you bring the soul down, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then when you become pregnant with that hope to be soul, You're going to raise your frequency. All you're doing up until from conception to 120 days is raising your frequency. So you're doing that through yoga, through meditation, and through dedication. The most important period of motherhood is the period of conception to birth. After that, the programming is done or just enhanced in whatever way form. If you really think about genes and genetics, how can we can program past it, of course, but not to the level of you're creating the consciousness of a child inside of your body. And the fact that Western practitioners don't see that right now just shows the level of where our planet is.
Right.
So back to conception to 120th day, you're basically raising your frequency so that on 120th day, which is the most important day of the pregnancy, you are the highest frequency you can be. You're in the most love you can have. You are surrounded by the people that love you. You're doing yoga. You're talking with me or a teacher, whoever you find to help you bring that soul through. And then from that point on, you're talking to the soul within your body. So then you're having full conversations with the soul, because a lot of women don't do that. I didn't know to do this. My consciousness changed so quickly. Now I know all these things I didn't know before, right? You want to act as if the soul has never been here before. So, because there's going to be a lot of really high caliber frequency souls coming to the planet at a really high intensity or a fast rate now. And so you're going to have to teach them, this is a dishwasher. This is a car. This is how we sleep. We sleep 8 hours here. You are a boy. So I like to know the sex. I like to have women know the sex, because boys act like this on this planet. Girls act like this. This is money. This is how you make money. So it's not just letting go of the generational patterns. It's really teaching all the things the child needs to know within the womb in those months. It takes a lot of work and time. You're talking to the child all day long, like, oh, this is a car, or this is my computer. Computers are really important here. You got to know technology, these kind of things.
While you're pregnant, you're doing all of this. But it's like, and then when you give birth, you're already training, you're doing the yoga, you're doing the walking, but it becomes a part of your life because you're healthier. Right.
It's not that much harder to do those things. And as you're talking to the baby, you're bonding.
Yeah.
When the baby comes out, you're already bonded, where most women are in shock. And so you're bonded to this baby. And the funny thing about it, the male can be involved or it doesn't have to be involved. You're doing the whole thing. I mean, I talk about all of this in my books, which are super dense. Most people I've heard people saying they pass out with fertile and they have to read it again. Like, they actually follow.
The sacred geometry is pretty dense.
Yeah, I actually got that in Scotland through meditation. They explained that to me.
Wow.
Yeah, so they had me travel to all the places of the Rose Ley line where there's energetic points of, the Mary Magdalene sites and, Mother Mary sites and things like that around the world. And I was placed in those while my ex-husband was selling a company in Europe. And I would hear, you need to go to Mary Magdalene's cave now. And I was like, what? Where? Okay. And I would fly an hour away because I was very close, and I would park a car, hike up a mountain, and be in Mary Magdalene's cave and receive this information. And I was like, this is so intense. And then I wrote it down.
When is this is going to be in your third book? When is that coming out?
3 books in 3 years. So I'm actually really just starting. My third book is Alchemy of Becoming, and that is the best book.
When's it going to be available?
In a couple of months.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
And then like you said, there's more coming from the series.
There'll be 12 books total before I die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
That's what you're going to do. So once you become creative, all you have time is for creations.
Right.
You don't realize that how much we waste, all the energy we waste thinking about what our husband's doing, thinking about what we're going to, there's so much time we're wasting because of the subconscious patterns. And so the meditations, like, for example, if you're wasting a lot of time right now and you don't know what you're doing here and you're feeling really frustrated, do Jupiter chakra meditation. That's in my book. That one is an amazing meditation, because if you're stuck in the trauma, you're recreating it. And the trauma just it holds you back from creating what you came here to do.
Yeah. And that's not cool. And And I would have to say, I do see, a decent amount of women feeling lost about what their purpose is. Why are they here? Whether they're a mother or not. And I think, that exactly what you're just saying. They're lost because there's like a disconnect there to their true self.
Yeah. And so these mantras, they help you. I mean, you don't have to pick this lineage. You don't have to do this. I'm just saying it's the fastest thing I know. And so if there's something faster, I'd do that. I've actually tried Lacey Phillips' work. I really like her stuff. It's like neural reprogramming, but it's really what creates your world is your subconscious.
Yes.
And just to understand just a little bit of definition of what a subconscious is. A subconscious is there's subconscious, unconscious, and consciousness. Subconscious is like a trash can, and you fill it up. You're filling it up. You fill it up in the womb. Your mom filled it up for you. She loved to fill it up because she never really talked to you, and she didn't tell you how to get here, and she didn't know any better. And she was eating a lot of bad food, and she was filled with a bunch of gunk. So you got all her stuff. Then you're born, and then you got mom, dads, and grandmas, all their gunk, and your genetic line was never really cleared energetically. So then you try to become adult and you're filled with all this garbage. And so when the garbage begins to pull out of your subconscious, it becomes neurotic tendencies and phobias. And neurotic tendencies are the obsessions you have that are wasting your time. So those are obsessive thoughts over people and places and environments, controlling mechanisms. It's self-sabotaging things like drinking too much or working out too much or worrying about your weight too much. Women probably spend hours a day thinking about how not beautiful they are. And so in my work, what I teach, especially in my third book, Alchemy of Becoming, is if you take the most powerful population on the planet and you make them feel like they're ugly and horrible and not so intuitive or not so powerful, then you can control them.
Right.
So if we all remember that we created the whole thing, if you don't like Trump, I don't really have a preference for liking him or not. But if you don't like him, just remember who his mother was. His mother created him. Or if you don't like Biden or if you don't like your husband, it's like, well, what you should talk to there's somewhere that was created.
Yeah.
So we have to take some ownership. And ownership is not the projections of like, if my husband did it like this, then I'd be better. Ownership is, okay, I'm going to spend all those hours that I just wasted on meditating. I'm going to get up in the early morning. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do cat-cow. I'm going to pick a meditation from whatever lineage is God gives me, or you can go to Mystical Motherhood and pick one of those or find what works for you. And I'm going to create a balance every day to make myself contained and committed to this change, and it will change you.
Yeah. I mean, I even remember reading in your book about you said we didn't need that much sleep, and that we don't need 8 hours of sleep, right? When you're vibrating at that higher level,
you don't. You really don't, and you'll find that like it's very interesting with when you're reaching a new frequency is there's lots of ways to sabotage it. So, and the sabotaging will become more subtle and more subtle over time. And I personally, so one of my sabotagers is like, I'll do a lot of yoga and I'll get really, really clear and I'll be so on it. And I could write another book. I'm really in my moment. And then I'm like, I'm going to have some red wine.
Right.
And that's so simple. It's so innocent. Come on. It's nothing that bad. But man, does that sabotage it. Like I bring myself back to the original vibration because I'm vibrating almost too high, right?
Right.
You all have to find what your sabotager is. It may be, as subtle as your husband says you look good and you're like, no, I look ugly. Boom, you just ruined it. And so some of the things you have to do, it's really I say this not from a hippy dippy point of view, but like you have to make your home into a temple. And that temple has to vibrate. And so just like the women of the ancient times would make their home, their temple was their place of worship, right?
Right.
Your house needs to be that. And it needs to be vibrating. And the way to do that is through sound. It like you should have the mantras going on your Sonos or on little machines, in a couple of different rooms all the time, even when you're leaving. And at night, you can play the gong, just repeating this. and I'll give a good mantras for specific things. Then you want to have, an altar going, as weird as that sounds, as normal as it sounds. So if you're trying to balance the elements within you, create that in an altar. I talk about this in my book. You want to make sure your kitchen it's like what you're wearing. You don't need to wear sweatpants every day. Wear a beautiful dress, like put jewelry on, do your hair, make yourself so beautiful so that it's not like you're doing it for somebody else. You're doing it for your own pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, the vibration within you and the energy within you will change. And the breath work, or wherever you find that healing, you'll begin to transfer it to everyone around you. And you'll find that as you become more abundant and you work on yourself, your husband's going to make more money. Everybody's going to get, boosted. The people you work with are going to be happier. You're going to make more money. It's just amazing. Like the more you work on yourself, there's nothing that can go wrong with it.
No. And to your point, it's just magnetic. So you're just going to continue to attract all of these things into you.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we got to wrap up. Any last thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
No, that's great. It was great to talk to you. I know I went really deep on a lot of things, and I just really work with women globally to help them raise their consciousness so that they can create more conscious families. And it's like a more modern approach to motherhood, where I get past all the I call it bull, but to get to them to become better humans, and so that they can, bring these high caliber souls to earth and change the world. You can find my work at www.mysticalmotherhood.com. My books, Fertile and Mystical Motherhood, are written under Pritam Atma, and you can find them on Amazon. And I have several classes coming up. You can just purchase them on my website, which will be up in the next month. And my next book, Alchemy of Becoming, will be out in the next couple of months.
Oh, so exciting.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing and diving deep. I loved it.
Yep. No problem. It was great to speak with you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode with such a like-minded sister to myself, Pritam, and how she is really making a difference in the cultural conditioning and shifts in the world and globe as we know it. One of her favorite quotes from this episode for me was, "As a woman, you have the power to make a major shift in the world." And I think that's something that I would like to leave with you today. And also to remind you, if you're looking for support with preparing for your own upcoming pregnancy, please check out my Brayton Birth Method program at drlaurabrayton.com so you can see how I can support you with a holistic preconception.